The left has a new favorite word: disinformation. It sounds sinister, doesn't it? I mean, who would want to disinform anybody? Of course, anybody who practices this practice surely has no place in civilized debate, right? Because by embarking on a crusade against this evil practice, the left is again claiming a monopoly over the moral high ground and, as an added bonus, truth itself. But is this really what it looks like, or is this just another form of, again, dare I say it, misinformation? Well, let's find out as we go, busting the narrative. Firstly, when discussing disinformation, we must remember there is a simpler, more common word for the phenomenon: lies. You know, the practice your mother warned you about, but you went ahead and did anyway to get out of doing your chores or your homework or being in trouble for staying out too late. Lying is as old as the language itself, and in fact has a rightful place in a civilized society, which I'll get to later. But let's talk about the left's new hero in this crusade, Nina Jankowicz, who has built a career as an international campaigner against disinformation and other leftist shibboleths in the US and even Central Europe. Now, Newsweek says her research has, quote, focused on disinformation as well as Russia and the treatment of women online, and she has even been, who knew they had this, an advisor on strategic communications to Ukraine. But here's where it gets a bit strange and Orwellian. Last week, she was appointed chief of a new U.S. government disinformation governance board, announced, amazingly, just by coincidence, a couple of days after neo-libertarian space explorer Elon Musk took control of the previously left-dominated Twitter platform. In 2020, she appeared before the Congressional Committee on Select Intelligence to discuss ways to stop misinformation and conspiracy theories online. This testimony, again, just by coincidence, was delivered on October 16th, which was just 2 days after the New York Post exposed those emails from Hunter Biden, which exposed an awful lot, as well as his own dodgy business deals with the peddling of his own father Joe's political influence. This was a topic that Nina couldn't resist referring to during her own testimony. Have a listen.
These unsubstantiated and misleading narratives promoted by self-interested and corrupt individuals seeking power and personal gain.
Whoa, let's hold it right there. Did she say self-interested people seeking personal gain? Wasn't that a copy of her own book, How to Lose the Information War, sitting there in the background? Anyway, as you were saying,
were endorsed by the president's advisors, treated as fact by portions of the media, and legitimized within the halls of Congress. Individuals that served as sources for these theories have since been discredited, sanctioned, and revealed to have active connections to Russian intelligence services. And yet this week, we are still talking about these theories.
And a year and a half later, we still are. That's because the misleading narratives and theories turned out to be perfectly true, as even newspapers like the New York Times have been forced to grudgingly concede. Now, if like me you're wondering how these people manage to reconcile such industrial-grade hypocrisy, well, it's easy. Such double standards are actually part of the leftist playbook. They have always believed in free speech, even disinformation, but only when it suits them. This goes back at least as far as the freewheeling 1960s, when, for example, Abby Hoffman and the Chicago 7 were tried for planning a riot. Leftist icons like Allen Ginsberg, Arlo Guthrie, and Norman Mailer leapt to their defense, and Netflix even dramatized the story through their usual rainbow-colored glasses.
We want to underscore again that we're coming to Chicago peacefully, but whether we're given permits or not, we're coming.
We're going to Chicago to protest the Vietnam War.
And there's no place to be right now but in it.
We watched for a decade while these rebels without a job tell us how to prosecute a war. Well, they're going to spend their 30s in a federal facility, real time.
People say, you know, Abby, are you concerned about an overreaction from the cops?
You all right?
It was until I saw that.
Larry Flynt, who used this liberal definition of free speech to build a porn empire, also got the nod of approval from the anti-conservative establishment, including this 1996 biopic featuring a young Ed Norton as Flynt's lawyer in one of his many civil lawsuits.
Obviously, when people criticize public figures, they're going to experience emotional distress. We all know that. It's the easiest thing in the world to claim, and it's impossible to refute, and that's what makes it a meaningless standard. Really, all it does is allow us to punish unpopular speech. And this country is founded, at least in part, on the firm belief that unpopular speech is absolutely vital to the health of our nation.
Unpopular, that is, until it comes from, say, Donald Trump, James O'Keefe, Naomi Wolf, Robert Malone, the Babylon Bee, or the New York Post, in which case they need to be kicked off Twitter and banned from the public square because they are a threat to the health of the nation. The left were at it again this week when someone leaked to leftist website Politico a draft decision of the U.S. Supreme Court indicating an imminent reversal of the Roe v. Wade decision from 1973, which found women had a constitutional right to abort their unborn children. Quote, "The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision," Politico thundered. Now, this had, of course, the intended effect, which was for the left to exercise their free speech rights and protest the draft decision. But this isn't free speech as we know it. The intention of these protests was to interfere with the court's due process to get it to deliver an alternate decision. Chief Justice John Roberts himself said it was a betrayal of the confidences of the court and was intended to undermine the integrity of our operations. This is the left at its most audacious. Its right to free speech overrides even the processes of the Supreme Court because, as they know, any other vision of events and any other outcome than the ones that they want is disinformation. And that, my friends, is not a lie. Thanks for watching. I'm James Morrow, and please support this channel by giving it a like, share, and subscribe below. And I'll see you next week for more Busting the Narrative.